Hey, what's up friends? You get Gypsy back here today with week 2 of the NPL. Today we're going up against Cloud Envy and his jersey Dwebbles. So Cloud is a guy I didn't get to play last season, but a player that I've been wanting to face off against for quite a while now. Cloud has a very threatening team. As you guys can see on screen, he's got the Beedrill, so that's definitely not standard Beedrill, that's a Mega Beedrill for sure, which is a huge threat against my team. My team being predominantly an offensive team, very offensive team, lacking a lot of bulk. And the bulk that I do have is fairly weak to Beedrill. So I'm going to give a quick rundown of Cloud's team before I jump into the squad that I've brought today. So first up, he has Toxapex, the Wall, the new Gen 7's Ferrothorn in a sense, coupled with Skarm, they perform a very, very nice defensive core. Obviously sharing that electric type weakness, but he does make up for that by having Flygon and the Celebi, as you guys can see on screen. So he's also got the Manectric with Lightning Rod, so he's got a few answers to electric types. And then he's got Mega Beedrill, as I said earlier, and then he's got Florigis, which is a pretty nasty cleric, a fat one that can give my team a lot of trouble if I don't prep accordingly. Arcanine, pretty nice physical defensive wall, pretty nice offensive mon as well, actually can perform quite well against my team. Versus my slower mons, and then he has the Hitmontop for spinning, Manectric, as you guys can see, he's brought that today, the Flygon, the Celebi, Sharpedoes, which is a pretty big threat to my team, considering it is one of his Z-mons, so one of the mons he's opted to run Z-moves on, and lastly he has the Frostlass and the Tauros. So yeah, he's got quite an unorthodox team, but definitely a threatening one, and one that I feel he can really make use of a lot of hidden threats, stuff like Frostlass and Tauros. You don't really sort of think are going to do a lot of work and actually surprise players in certain matchups. So running over the team I brought today, we have first up we have my boy Dragonite. Dragonite's this week with the Flying MZ, Supersonic Strike, I should say. Mainly here for the Florigis and the Toxapex. If I get to +1, I can easily knock out. I can actually knock out Fizdef Florigis after one round of rocks. And I have, the Z-move Fly to spank Toxapex after some rocks. If he's kind of spideffed, and it goes after rocks at +1. It's a pretty nice one. I have T-Punch on this set to hit Skarm for decent damage. If it's a specially defensive set, which could make a lot of sense given that I do have a Mega Gardevoir on my team, it will be taking a lot more from the Thunder Punches versus a physically defensive Skarm. Then we have my Zapdos, which is a set that my boy Sebastian actually suggested to me whilst we were testing. I made a couple of different teams for this match, but I really felt as though during the mocks that we're just looking at his team as a whole. I can't play defensively versus this, I have to really play offensively, and that is how my draft is kind of orientated. It really does support an offensive playing style where I make the right predictions. So this Zapdos is definitely kind of following suit. It is an agility set, as I said, suggested by my boy Sebastian, top tier boy. Go check him out, he's a fucking god. Yeah, so this set basically runs through his team once I've gotten the necessary chip on his opposing mons. With Modest Life Orb, T-Bot kills Mega Beedrill after rocks. I Merc Celebi with a Signal Beam, kill it if it's not like max special defense. Frostlass dies to T-Bot after rocks. Flygon is blown back by HP Ice. Manectric gets 2-KO'd by Signal Beam with ease, and Scum obviously drops to a T-Bolt after his sturdy's broken. So Zapdos is definitely a potential win con if I can manage to kind of position it correctly during the match. That's all going to be dependent on how I play it. Then we have Scarf, the Dog Trio, here to trap Beedrill. A pretty nice set. Traps Beedrill, can revenge Frostlass, even a Scarf variant with Shadow Claw or Earthquake respectively. Earthquake obviously dealing just about the same damage, to be honest, as Shadow Claw. Earthquake also traps, Dougie also traps Manectric if I need it to trap Manectric. Also traps like a fat Florigis, which could have been a potential issue. If I get it weakened enough, I can just take it out with the Earthquake, which is pretty nice. And then we have, we also on the Dougie set, I have a couple of utility moves to help, stuff like Memento to help with potential setup of my first two mons late game if need be. And then I have my Empoleon, is a physically defensive set this week, rocking the Shukaberry to help me take on a Drew running Mega Beedrill, as well as a double Dragon Dancing Flygon, which is actually a really big threat to my team. As I mentioned, offense don't really like to face setup mons like Dragon Dance users, and yeah, this Flygon could be a potential problem. That's why I am rocking my physically defensive Sugarberry Empoleon, which easily blows it back with Ice Beam, even not invested. Easily kills, given that Flygon is 4 times weak. So a pretty nice mon this game. I can win the Hazard War 1v1 against the Skarm if he is Rock Skarm. I got Defog just in case he does. I want to potentially stack hazards with the combination of, you know, Celebi, Frostlass, and Skarm. He may like spike stack rocks, and obviously I want to keep rocks off my side of the field if I can help it, to assist Zapdos and Dragonite in cleaning late game or just setting up early game and breaking. I got Scald and Ice Beam. As I said, for general coverage, Scald allows me to potentially get burns on this Skarmory, which is going to be pretty nice, allowing especially defensive Skarmory to perform far worse as a wall to my guard if it is burnt. Just getting that chip and getting the leftovers could be really clutch. And then we have Scarfed Infernape. Infernape this week is basically a nice check to very looking like a nice win con in this game actually. Fleblitz is super effective on 4 of the 6 mons. Manectric gets blown back by Infernape's Fleblitz after rocks, which is pretty key. And Flygon actually takes a hefty chunk. Even though Fleblitz is resisted, it still does around 33% to like high 30s to the Flygon. So that's pretty nice. Flygon, if I can preserve it, the Inferno, if I can preserve it right, late game could be a pretty nice win con, but it's also going to allow me to scout his sets with U-turn. Having that momentum with the U-turn into stuff like Dotrio or my Empoleon, my guard, could be really clutch. And lastly, we have my Mega Gardevoir. And Mega Gardevoir this week, rocking the Hyper Voice, and the T-Bolt for especially defensive Skarm, and Psychic for Toxapex to Oko it after rocks if he's a physically defensive set. And we have Taunt this week, just in case he did want to bring like a fat, obnoxious Florges. It really does help whittle that down, just preventing him from passing wishes and healing up himself. So that is the team. Looking at matchup, just looking at his team first, I did kind of think to myself, Skarm was more than likely a physically defensive set, given the fact that he has elected not to bring Florges and it has instead brought Celebi, which I really did feel as though that was especially defensive mon, just because my physically offensive threats like Dragonite and Infernape really don't care even if the Celebi is physically defensive, because they can still murk it with their respective stabs. So I felt as though Celebi was more than likely especially defensive. And the Skarm is definitely looking to be physically defensive, taking advantage of Dragonite's physical set. However, you know, I could be completely wrong, but that's just the assumption that I'm making at this matchup. So, kind of guessing what he's going to lead off with. Flygon looks to be a pretty safe lead for him if it is a Scarf variant, which does make a fair amount of sense on his team, I should say, being able to check stuff like a +1 Dragonite, as well as outpacing the majority of my team with the Scarf. So, a pretty nice lead on his behalf, but he may also opt to lead with Manectric. I'm actually going to lead with my Empoleon here, just wanting to prevent a potential Mega Beedrill lead, because if I do lead with something like my Dugtrio trying to trap his Manectric, firstly his Manectric could be Shed Shell, Shuka, or Air Balloon, and secondly Dugtrio can't kill a Mega Beedrill with a little bit of defense or HP investment from full without any chip on it. So I really felt as though Empoleon was my lead. If at worst he leads off with Celebi or something like that, or Manectric, I get rocks or I switch out into my Dougie to trap. You guys are going to see I do lead off with Empoleon, as he does lead off with his Manectric, and he reveals to be Air Balloon, so definitely a nice bring on Cloud's part, wanting to avoid getting trapped on my Dugtrio, so I can definitely understand that on his behalf. But I am going to switch here and go into my guard, reason being, if he predicts me to go into my Dugtrio, which, you know, he could do, he could fire off an HP Ice, and while it won't kill coming from a Balloon, a Manectric, even with max special attack, it'll deal a hefty chunk. But if I stay in here, if I'm a Spidef, like, even a no specially defense invested Empoleon can tank a T-Bolt with ease from this Manectric. He could just as easily fire up a T-Bolt here and get some damage off on me. If he does fire off the HP Ice, the reason why Guard is such a safe play is because Guard eats an HP Ice with ease and forces him out into a switch in like Celebi or Skarm. Alternatively, if he does fire for T-Bolt, I get a nice special attack boost after tracing his lightning rod. So I am going to go into my guard here, as he does fire for T-Bolt. Another reason why I didn't switch into Dugtrio was T-Bolt was fairly safe from his perspective because he wasn't going to be trapped by Dugtrio the next turn, so he could always break my, he could have always broken my Dugtrio's potential sash with the HP Ice and switched out the next turn, not fearing being trapped, and gone out to his Scum. So I felt like Gardevoir was the play, and indeed it was. So I'm just going to fire for Hyper Voice. Even Spidef Scum is going to be murked by Hyper Voice into T-Bolt, so I have no reason not to fire for Hyper Voice. As he does just go into his Celebi, and this is a max special attack guard with a +1, and that does 41%. So you guys already know this is most certainly a max special defense AV Celebi. So definitely an interesting bring on Cloud's part. I'm going to fire for Hyper Voice here. Weakening the Celebi does allow my my Zapdos to have an easier time. Actually putting it in this range of health now, he is in range to die to Signal Beam. So that is pretty nice. I think it's a roll because he's like max with FAV, but weakening it further does guarantee Zapdos will be able to easily take it out late game. So he goes for the slow U-turn here. Pretty interesting, very nice set on his part, in my opinion, as it does underspeed my guard and allows him to get slow U-turn out into his Beedrill, which you guys are going to see he goes out to now. And this thing is a threat. I'm not going to stay in. I'm going to go out to my Empoleon. I don't fear the Drill Run because Drill Run does, at most, even without my Sugar Berry, 50%. And I have my Sugar, so it's going to do like 20%. And I'm not gonna be too carried anyway. So the best he's gonna do really here is U-turn, not wanting to risk it. He's just gonna go for the U-turn, and I'm gonna eat that up fairly well. His U-turn damage reveals him to be a Jolly set, so it was pretty interesting. Adamant damage would have done more, or he was either Jolly or he got a very low Adamant roll. I wasn't too sure at this point, but I did kind of suspect him to be Jolly. Although Adamant does make sense, as he does possess the natural speed to outspeed my team comfortably with Adamant, so I'm not too sure on that, but definitely go and check out the Cloud side of the match to get an insight into his sets. But he brings in Manectric here. I have no reason to stay with Empoleon when I do have Dougie in the back. The fact that I'd shown Guard to be my initial switch into this Manectric made me feel like he may try and predict there, and the fact that I am Mega Evolved with my Guard means that it's no longer an electric type switch in. But he may predict me to go into my guard again, not wanting to risk my Dugtrio as he is Air Balloon. But now I'm going to make a nice double out into my guard, into my Infernape this turn as he goes out into his Scum. Now that turn he didn't want to, I guess he wanted to capitalize on my Doggy being in and set up hazards of his own with his Skarmory. But I go out to my Infernape, reason being, like, if he'd stayed in, he would have HP Iced, Infernape would have eaten it up, and I would have been able to U-turn next turn on his Volt Switch and trap him with Dougie that turn. Or he was going to switch out, and Scarf Infernape gets the offensive advantage versus anything he wants to bring out, because if he brings in Flygon, I U-turn out. If he brings in Scum, I threaten him with Fair Blitz. And in this situation, he does still have his Sturdy intact. Infernape is such a fantastic win con this game. I'm obviously not going to stay in, but if he risks Scum dying here to a Flare Blitz or an Overheat or anything like that, Dragonite instantly becomes that much more threatening versus his team. His team is looking fairly weak to Dragonite at this point, although he probably does have Scarf Flygon in the back. Getting Scum that weak is definitely not a good idea for him, so I am predicting him to attack here. If anything, at least wanting to get a kill out of this trade if he does let Scum go down here. So I'm going to go for the U-turn. I go out into my Empoleon, who is easily able to win this Hazard War if he did want to go for the hazards there, but he does just fire off the Brave Bird as we eat that up comfortably. Brave Bird from Scum is actually pretty strong. It's base 120 and Scum are not that weak, so it does 13%. But now I am just going to get up my rocks here. Now rocks are crucial, as I said earlier, for my sweeping mons to be able to get the appropriate chip damage they need to clean. And at this point, Zapdos is looking more and more appealing as each turn goes by. Getting the chip, breaking the Sturdy. When this Manectric switches in next time, it will have taken Stealth Rock damage, putting it closer to Dido. Signal Beam. But having these rocks up is just really nice for the Beedrill and the Frostlass respectively. So he's going to go into his Manectric, and I have no reason to stay in here. Empoleon could still be useful late game, being able to tank an Earthquake from a Flygon if I need to. I'm just going to go into my Gardevoir, and the reason this was a 50-50 of sorts in the sense that I had already shown that I was willing to play a bit risky with my Dougie and do doubles into guard. on a potential HP Ice or Infernape as well. So I felt as though that turn he may have been trying to play aggressively, especially after being in the back, so far in the back in a sense that I've been able to successfully get rocks up and lure in his stuff like his Scarm. So that doesn't pay off. He goes for the Volt Switch there and gets the momentum out into his Frostlass. Now this is great. This means that Frostlass has taken the damage I need for Zapdos to kill it, even if his Scarm or his Flygon does somehow manage to get rid of the hazards. At least his Scarm and his Frostlass are now in range to die to T-Bolt. So very nice of me. He goes into his Frostlass, and I have no reason to keep guard around. This is physically defensive based on the U-turn damage I did with Infernape, which means it will die to a T-Bolt regardless, especially after the rocks damage it's going to take coming in. It gets killed by Beedrill, and it was in range to die to T-Bolt from Manectric at that range of health anyway, so it wasn't really doing too much. It had already weakened Celebi, which was this thing's main check, so guard had done its job, and I do, with a heavy heart, let it go down here. But this is great, because he goes for the Shadow Ball there, and I do expect him to be actually a Specs variant, reason being, he lacks special breaking power on his team. Manectric is a balloon variant, so it's not hitting hard. Celebi, as I said earlier, is a special wall to the fullest. It's got that clean max special defense plus AV, so it's really not hitting hard at all on the especially offensive side. He really does lack a special breaker, which is appreciated on most teams. So just to support Beedrill's sweep anyway, potential sweep I should say. So I did really expect this thing to be Specs, reason being as well, Flygon makes a fine Scarfer on his team versus mine, so I'm just going to bring in my Infernape here and click Flare Blitz as he does sack off the Celebi. So fine play by Cloud. Celebi wasn't really doing anything at this point in the match, so I can definitely understand the sack, but he goes into Flygon here. Now, Flygon is a mon that, as I said, very much threatens me if it does set up. My play here is to go into Dragonite, because if I go into Empoleon on a Earthquake, he pops my Shukra and proceeds to outgame me. If he sets up in his Dragon Dance, Empoleon can take one Earthquake with ease with the Shukra Berry from the range of health he's at, but I have to get him in safely. I switch in and take two. So my mentality here is he's either going to set up or he's going to go for the Earthquake, because I do have Empoleon in the back. Alternatively, he could fire off a Dragon Claw or a Stone Edge, predicting my Flyings to come in, but Dragonite is far less useful. Well, it's not far less useful, it's still quite useful, but it's less useful than my Zapdos, considering that he does have a Fizz Def Scarm in the back. So I'm going to go into my Dragonite, comfortable with him being able to set up a Dragon Dance, because he won't be able to kill me with my multi-scale intact, or even just firing off an Earthquake and being immune to that. So I'm going to go to my Dragonite. He actually U-turns out here, gets the chip off, and that damage does reveal him to be an Adamant Flygon. He's most likely a Scarfed set, as Adamant doesn't make much sense on like a Dragon Dance. U-turn doesn't make much sense on a Dragon Dance set, as well as the fact that Adamant Scarf Flygon does outspeed Jolly +1 Dragonite. So yeah, definitely that was my thinking at this point in the game, and this is confirmed by the fact next turn you guys are going to see. I am going to go into my Empoleon just in case he did want to go for the Ice Beam here, but he actually makes a fine prediction, goes for the T-Bolt. I was sacking Empoleon off in a sense here because I do have the means to win at this point with either Zapdos or Infernape respectively. Both my win cons are looking pretty clean. I have Dragonite to get the necessary damage off of Flygon with the extreme speed if I need to. But if I can just get Zapdos in at the right moment and set up an agility, I win at this point. So he goes for the T-Bolt there, revealing he is indeed Specs, as that is definitely Specs damage. So I go out into my Dug Trio here in an attempt to eat up the T-Bolt and scare him out this turn and get to go out into either Scarm or Flygon. I really felt as though Scarm was his play here, so he could defog the rocks away, or Flygon if he had defog, but I'm going to make a double now and go into my Zapdos, realizing that this is the best point in time I'll be able to catch him, and I can set up at this point. So he does make the switch out here, going into his Manectric, perhaps fearing the HP Ice, as any variant of Zapdos can eat up an Adamant Stone Edge or Outrage from a Scarfed Adamant Flygon at that range at full. So yeah, he switches out, fearing the HP Ice, knowing that Manectric can tank an HP Ice and deal damage back to me next turn with either Volt Switch or HP Ice himself. So I'm going to go for the Agility on the switch, And now you guys are going to see Zapdos goes in. So he goes for the Signal Beam, pops Manectric's Balloon, meaning he is able to be trapped by Dougie at this point. Manectric does 36% with the Hidden Power Ice, and Zapdos is looking pretty nice right now. So he goes into his Mega Beedrill, thinking that perhaps, well, you know, he hadn't really have a chance at this point. He had to go for, you know, the possibility that I was timid, perhaps and wouldn't be able to knock him out with T-Bolt, but I think even Timid Life or Max Special Attack knocks out Beedrill at this range of health, unless he's like Max HP Beedrill. So I go for the T-Bolt, I knock him out, and in comes Scum, and Scum's going to obviously drop to the T-Bolt, and at this point the game is looking over. So Flygon is going to come in. Once again, Flygon, a pretty nice set by Cloud this week, rocking the Adamant Scarf. Very nice, I can definitely understand the thought process behind that. And now Frostlass is going to come in and drop to Zapdos. So definitely a fun game. Really wrapped that Zapdos set came through, because funnily enough, if you haven't watched Seb's match this week, both our agility mons actually came through, so that's pretty hilarious in my opinion. Nice coincidence there. Go and check out Seb's game for sure. Yeah, so definitely a fun match. GG to my man Cloud. I really do encourage you guys to go and check out his side of the match, because he always tends to upload really funny commentary, and it's always nice to see the opponent and their perspective, you know, their outlook on the game. I know I'll be watching that as soon as it goes up. I'm always very interested to hear their thought process. And yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed. I know it's been you know, a pretty funny start to the season, but you know, we're looking to bounce back hard after our week 1 loss, and I hope you guys are excited. Next week we were supposed to play AIM, but unfortunately he has decided to leave the league. You know, he looked on the you know, our document, he saw his week 3 opponent and he clicked that X. So instead of facing AIM next week, we are actually facing Shadi, a guy I've been wanting to play for a long time now. Keldio's namesake, and you know, a good friend of mine. I consider him a friend anyway. And yeah, that'll be pretty exciting, and I hope you guys are excited for that. So thank you guys so much for watching. I do appreciate it. If you did enjoy, I'd really love if you guys could leave a like and let me know what you guys thought of the match and the team in the comments. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time.